We want to welcome you folks into another episode of 1AA Parlays, a show where we talk a little bit about FCS betting lines on this wonderful Saturday morning. We are a part of the Fans Nation Network. Shout out to the guys of the FCS Fans Nation Network for letting us do this. I'm your host, Colby Peterson. Joining me today, once again, the betting master himself, Montana Parlay. Parlay, how's it going, man? How did last week treat you?
You know, it was a good week on the score sheet, but not so much on the amount won or lost. I got to watch that bet sizing. When your favorite bet doesn't hit and ruins a couple parlays, you can go 5-1 and still lose money. So but I hope I made you guys all some money. So
I did okay. I kind of made the same mistake, put some bets that I felt really good about with some bets that maybe were a little shaky and lose parlays because of that. So I'm going to have to watch that myself this week because, like you said, didn't come out as far ahead as I should have based on the success that we had, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But good to hear, man. Well, let's talk a little bit about this week's show. Obviously, we're going to give a recap. We got to talk about how good we were last week. And so we're going to do that. We're going to talk about last week's recap, where we hit, where we did not. And then we'll go into this week's picks. We'll start parlay with you. And then I got a couple that I wanted to shout out. But before we do, I want to encourage everybody to please subscribe to the show or to the channel on YouTube if that's where you're listening. If you're on Twitter, make sure to subscribe to the FCS Fans Nation Twitter account. It's where you can find content like this, along with a lot of other shows. There's a UAC podcast, obviously the big show. There's the FCS Fans Nation weekly show, B Team guys. Tons of good FCS content out there. Make sure to subscribe there. Really appreciate them for letting us do this. So, Parlay, let's talk, man. Last week, I want to start it out with the most important bet that we had last week, which was Stetson points, Nate beers.
yeah.
So
is that why he's not here? Because he had to drink 21 beers?
Surprisingly, 21 points from Stetson, against a good Montana State team, which, our two teams are playing today in Ogden. So we'll see how that one goes. But yeah, 21 points. Did not expect that. So Nate, a little bit busy this morning, not necessarily because of 21 beers, but not able to join us. But we made sure to get the count from him. And that total was 15. Was that what he told us, Parlay?
He said 15, yeah.
15. But he did say he ran 6 miles after to make up for those points. So
on the same day? After
I don't know about the same day. He didn't say that. Because, I don't know what it's like to go drunk jogging, but I can't imagine it's awesome. I just don't think that it's awesome. So, all right. Didn't hit on that one. What a bummer. But overall, hey, let's talk about our wins. So, Parlay, first win of the week from last week. You nailed it, man. The under at 57.5. Absolutely nailed it. The Grizz end up mustering just 17 points against D2 Ferris State, who is a quality D2 team. We should say that. Defending national champions at the D2 level, but 27 points total in that one?
Less than half of the total. I think no sweat at all. I think I cut out on my... Can't hear you, bud. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. All right. If we're still live, we had some technical difficulties. I don't know if you guys out there heard Colby at all, but we just got done recapping Montana and Ferris State. That under was an easy one, 57.5, and there was a whole grand total of 27 points scored in that game. SLU at Eastern, that went over 59.5. It even cleared the the closing number, I believe, of like 62 or 63. It still went over. We also hit Nate easily hit Stetson at Montana State over 57.5. Not much of a sweat there either. Probably the easiest bet of the week was Holy Cross plus 2.5. That closed at Holy Cross minus 2.5, and they won by 3 scores. Western Carolina covered. That was a great game. Anyone who watched that one, there was multiple lead changes. You had a missed field goal as time expired, and Eastern Kentucky couldn't bring it back. South Dakota State minus 45.5. They put up 70 against lowly Drake. Boise State, Nate and I were both on that one, and for good reason. They easily covered against North Dakota. And let's see. Oof. The one that hurt last week was Wazoo against Northern Colorado. They come out 43-0 midway through the second quarter.
That's right.
We've got 45.5 on my biggest bet of the week and my contribution to the group parlay. And somehow the worst team in the Big Sky Conference, arguably, between them and Cal Poly, puts up 21 on Wazoo, and Wazoo takes their foot off the gas. Not really. They scored every single possession except for kneeling it before the half.
Right.
Kneeling it at the end of the game when they were in field goal range and maybe could have pulled off a cover, and an interception at UNC's 3-yard line when they were about to score. So that was a brutal
right
one.
There.
I had friends who followed me that were counting their money in the first half, and that's when you get screwed. So Furman, even though he got in at a good number, 6.5, because I saw that one closing above 10, they still didn't cover it. Might need to keep an eye out on Kennesaw State, or maybe Furman isn't quite the team we thought they'd be. And then Nate, the reverse jinx comes in. He was smiling all the way to, the ATM machine and losing his money as Montana, although I'm sure he would have liked to see a loss there at Wa-Grizz. They do not cover the spread. Ferris State was frisky. They did not look like a D2 team, though I think it was the stadium that lost it for them more than the Grizz, because Grizz looked rusty. Their offense needs some work, and we might be talking about that during my picks. Colby, I don't know where we lost you there. I kind of covered everything, the wins and the losses. You got anything more to add on our slate last week?
I don't know. Can you hear me now, or did it make a difference?
I got you loud and clear, buddy.
Perfect, man. You talked about the Furman thing. That game has me sort of like, I don't know what to think of this team right now, because we had high hopes for them. KSU did not look great. I think that they ended up losing to Chattanooga the week before, so it was like, maybe KSU's not that good. But then Furman struggles against them, and it's like, maybe Furman's not that good. This is the hard thing about early season, right? You just don't know where you're at.
Yeah, you don't know what either teams are coming into conference play, what they're showing in the non-con. They obviously need to win. They can't afford to lose those games, but you can't help but wonder if they're kind of looking ahead. Schools just started getting serious. I don't know. We can make excuses all day, but we're going to find out a lot over the next few weeks. And where we're going to find out the most is in the Big Sky Conference this week. We've got 3 marquee matchups, 2 especially, but 3 between either ranked teams or teams receiving votes. Starting off with a hell of a game in Moscow. Idaho hosts Sac State. I want to look at that line. I'm not making a pick when it was, I don't know if I have to. I was kind of leaning in Sac State, but how do you pick against Idaho at home? Right now, Sac State's favored by 3, so I got to take the points with the home team. I might put a half unit on that. I just kind of want to sit back and enjoy that game, though. How about you, Cody? What do you think? What do you think about Sac State minus 3 in Idaho?
So it's stay away from me, man. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And for me, sort of like we'll talk about it in a bit with MSU Weber, it's a stay away. It's too close for me to call. Could Idaho beat Sac? Yeah, I think they could. Absolutely. But could Sac come in and surprise? Yeah, they could do that too. I mean, as much as the green team annoys me, they have proven time and again in some of these Big Sky Conference games that they can get it done, right? And so I just don't know what to expect, especially them coming off of an FBS win, a Power 5 win at that, against Stanford last week. So I'm staying away from this one, dude. I'm just like you. I'm going to enjoy the game, but I'm not going to put any money on it. Maybe I'll have to check the over. What's the over on this one? Let's see.
56.5. That's a good point. That is the play. Honestly, now that I'm looking at it, if I'm calling, I'm making an adjustment. I don't have it here on our little spreadsheet. I'm going to type it in right now. I am going over 56.5. Idaho hosting Sac State. There's going to be some points in that game. So I think at least half unit, might get a little frisky and put one on it. So yeah, we are making an official bet on the Weber Sac. Colby, you can claim that one if you want, since you're the one who brought it up. But I think that's a solid bet right there. If you have to make a pick, I'm going to take the points for the home team. Speaking of which, the next marquee matchup in the Big Sky is your team hosting my team.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a good one. We don't got Tommy. He ran for 240 yards last year against you guys.
Yep.
And again, if I have to make a pick on the game, I'm taking the points with the home team. In Montana, you can get the hook at 3.5. It looks in other books across the nation, it's going to be 3. I've seen Pick'em early in the week, so money is coming in a little bit on Montana State. I do have a play on this game. Okay, when we get past the fact that it should be a great game, and I don't know what to expect from your guys' offense. I know your defense will be good as usual. I don't know how we'll pass against you. It'll be interesting with Chambers, but we will run the ball. I don't know.
That's the part that I'm not worried about the pass game from the Bobcats, right? It's can the Wildcats contain and keep Chambers behind the line of scrimmage, because they could not do it in 2 shots at Tommy Malott last season. They just haven't cracked that code, even though some of the tape is out there. You saw against South Dakota State a couple of weeks later that they had the formula for stopping Tommy Malott, but I don't know that the Wildcats haven't. To me, that's the biggest X factor in this game. If the Wildcats still haven't cracked the code on containing Sean Chambers from running all over them all day, it's going to be another long day against the Bobcats in Ogden.
Definitely. But not having Tommy, man, just that one guy. Ooh, it's going to be interesting. See what kind of running back, what Humphreys does. Montana State's been interesting about how they've used they haven't used Elliott much. He's lingering. Yep. Here's what I've noticed. And for those of you in Montana, I've got some great picks for you today, because there are some interesting discrepancies between Montana's lines and what we're seeing on the national books, or potentially on the national books, I should say, is the over-under again. Okay. I'm seeing 55.5. That makes sense to me. I mean, you used to think in the good old days of Weber, Montana State, especially that game with McKay, where it was just the ugliest game on earth, and it was on ESPNU for the world to see.
The last Weber State game I was at personally was that game.
Oh,
and we lost.
Just
a defensive slugfest.
Then last year, you can throw this regular season game out the window. It was raining in Bozeman. You had 4 snaps over the punter's head, and your returner, did he have not one? Did he have 2 or 3 returns for a touchdown?
There was one kick return for a touchdown, one punt return for a touchdown.
So 2
separate guys.
2 special teams touchdowns by Weber, and 4 snaps that greatly helped out the Bobcats' point scoring. You can throw that total out the window, okay? And then Weber was held to 6 points with 10 minutes left in the playoffs. I might be missing this by a bit, but they made a run at it and got close. I don't know what happened to the Bobcat defense late in that game, but I don't know how you look at those 2 games and try to figure out an over-under. All I know is it says 55 here. That's a stay away, but in Montana, it is still sitting at 65.5.
Oh, under.
And I may or may not know some people who have bet under 65.5. Montana State Weber, Sports Bet Montana. If you can get to those kiosks, they don't make it easy, but if you live in Montana, bet that under. I think there's some juice on the under now. You're going to be laying some wood to get that, but 65.5, that's going to be tough to see it get to that high. The other one I love, and it doesn't really play with the under, but you look at the running QBs. Malott had 240 yards last year. Chambers is all by himself against South Dakota State, playing maybe half the game overall. With once Malott got hurt, he was obviously playing the whole fourth quarter. He had 90 yards against possibly the best defense in the FCS.
Let me check.
That's Chambers rushing. He had 90 yards rushing. The over for Chambers against Weber today is 65 yards. Seems too good to be true.
Dude, smash that. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Smash that over.
Is there any cheap plane tickets for you to get to Montana in the next few hours?
Hey, man, if there is, do it. Because if the over-under at rushing yards for the Bobcats against Weber State is 65, you are printing money smashing that over. Oh, for him by himself?
Yeah.
Still, I'm taking it, dude.
He had 90 against SDSU. Tommy had 240 last year. You got to bet that over. A little spicier one is Chambers, and I got to get back here. I don't know how they're going to use the running back, so this is a lot more risky, but the juice is tasty, and that would be, Humphrey and Chambers each to get 75 yards. That's 8-1.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's worth a little taste, maybe 10, 20 bucks. So that's my Sports Bet Montana special. Oh, one more Sports Bet Montana special. We're just going to ride the trend. Sometimes when the coin is flipping tails every time, there's a guy, Nassim Talib says, people will say, well, it's a 50-50 chance. If it's come up tails 50 times in a row, it's a 50% chance that it's going to be heads. But you know what? If it goes 50 times in a row, it's probably a rigged coin. So keep betting, keep betting what it's coming. And speaking of which, Montana has gone under every game this year.
Yep.
55.5. NAU sucks. They gave them 50 against Utah Tech, and that's probably why this over-under is 55.5. I'm taking the under 55.5. UM comes out. I see like a 31-35 to 10 type score here is what I see. So I like that under. And look, man, we're playing a lot of points totals here. Makes me nervous. But you know what? I got my bad beat out of the way yesterday. Fingers crossed. I was under 54.5 on the Wisconsin-Purdue game. You think of a rock fight Big Ten game, under 54.5. Wisconsin scores late to get to 53. They go for two. They go for two when they're up God knows how many points. They don't need it. And they cover the over. Were they out? Did they have it in for me, or is that something fishy? Do we got some coaches betting on points totals here, Colby?
Yeah, I can't say.
I mean,
I don't know.
So I'm hoping that's my bad beat of the weekend, and everything I'm giving you fine people is going to be a winner. All right, so I've talked enough about over-unders. My final pick of the day is, I believe, an earlier game, and I'm just going to ride the humps. Campbell has been looking good. I'm not impressed by Elon. Campbell's at home. They were getting points earlier in the week. Right now, it's -1. So you basically just picking Campbell to win at home against a so-so Elon team. That's my final pick of the day. Smash that. Let's just call it a one-unit play. And that rounds it out. So we got MSU Weber under 65.5 if you're in Montana. Chambers, 65 rushing yards or more if you're in Montana. UM-NAU under 55.5. Campbell -1. And one thing I got to say is this line movement. Why can't we get early lines? Because one I loved early in the week, but lowly Patriot League or Pioneer League, sorry. Patriot at least has Holy Cross.
Yeah.
Pioneer League game, Butler at Stetson. Butler was only a 3-point favorite. They've got the better QB, a better team overall. That has moved to 8.5, which is probably the right spread. But man, if anyone got in on Butler -3 early in the week, shoot me a message. Good job on that. So there we go. Let's see if we can go at least. We can go 4-1, 5-0 this time, maybe. 5-1 last week.
All about placement, right? It depends on how you structure it, but it's all about that placement. So keep that in mind, folks.
Sizing.
Yep. Okay, man. And so, next week we'll kind of talk about them. I got a few for you, though, Parlay. The Campbell one was interesting to me because Campbell has had these touted recruiting classes, right? But it has yet to kind of materialize for them and really become the, power that they think. So this was an interesting game for me. I actually had it on my list of potential games to go to, but obviously I'm still here in Nashville, so didn't do that. But that is an interesting one. Campbell just to win at home looks good. Not bad. So let's talk about some of my picks, man, because I was not in love with a lot of the Big Sky lines that we got preliminarily, right? Like they weren't as awesome as I would have liked. Normally, this is what I love about betting the FCS is that you have these opportunities to go and get you can kind of catch the bookmakers, the odds makers sleeping sometimes because maybe they just don't quite know. You watch the league, kind of where the team is at, and then you can take advantage of those. I didn't really see that as much this week. Like you said, Parlay, a lot of pick 'em, especially those two big games, Sac at Idaho, Montana State at Weber. Both of those are stay away from me, except for, maybe some over-under. That's a place that I might look. So I kind of looked abroad. I looked, further afield across the country this week for some of my lines. And what I came up with, first one that came to my mind as I kind of looked through, Bethune-Cookman going to Jackson, Mississippi to take on Jackson State. The line I have is -12. Bethune-Cookman is absolutely terrible. They are awful, awful, awful. And so Jackson State has shown some promise this year. They've beat Southern. They've lost some close games, or they've lost some games that they probably should have, like the FAMU game. Florida A&M is a great team and, probably the favorite to win the SWAC this season. I don't think anybody would disagree. I don't know. I got to talk to my guy, Blue Bloods, Zach McKinnell. Got to talk to him. He's the expert on the SWAC. But from what I've seen from Jackson State thus far this year, they look plucky, like they could be something. And Bethune-Cookman, they had the weird head coaching thing over the offseason, and they just seem out of sorts. I like the Tigers to cover 12 over Bethune-Cookman, especially it's at home. Those HBCU environments are incredible. So I don't know. It looked good to me. So I think I'm gonna put that one. Maybe like you said, I'm like half a unit on this one. Depends on how you feel, how confident you feel. I'm probably gonna do a unit because I really think that Jackson State has what it takes. And like I said, Bethune-Cookman is just terrible. They are a bad team.
Like you're throwing in the HBCUs on these,
Well,
the love out there.
Well, a lot of it is, paying attention to our guy, Zach McKinnell over at the Blue Bloods. Does a lot of talk about the HBCUs, helps keep you up to date with the SWAC and the MEAC, along with other schools across the country. Zach's been doing a lot of traveling lately, and so he's been getting a lot of the FCS. But the HBCUs, he's always got great people on the show, great callers in to talk about it. And so if you want to get a really good handle on HBCUs, that's your guy. Sort of an ad for a guy not in the network, I know, but if you're a lover of HBCU football, that's a good source. All right, so my next one coming up, we talked about Kennesaw State earlier. Not sure what to think of them because of the way they lost to Chattanooga, but then they beat Furman in a close game. What do we make of them? I don't know. The thing that caught my eye is that they are on the road at Tennessee Tech. Tennessee Tech has had a rough go this year. They're not a good team. They're not going to be a good team. They've got some tough games scheduled ahead of them, namely the Gardner-Webb game that I have scheduled. So I just look at this and go, okay, Kennesaw State did well against Furman, a week removed from losing to Chattanooga. Okay, that's good. Tennessee Tech has not looked good against anybody, absolutely anybody. And so I'm doing the homework. The line on this one is 16.5. Can the Owls score more than 2.5 scores to make it happen against Tennessee Tech? I think they can. Tennessee Tech has the 106th scoring defense in the country. There are only 122 teams, folks. They're 106. KSU has the number 40 scoring offense. So Tennessee Tech's 106 versus KSU's number 40. I like it. 16.5. I think I'm gonna roll. I think I'm gonna put some money down on this one because the numbers look good. Tennessee Tech is bad, but the X factor here is how's Kennesaw State going to show up, because they've had bad weeks, they've had good weeks. It's a little this, but I got to think based on last week, it looks like they're going to figure it out. They're going to beat the Golden Eagles in Cookeville, and they're going to move on.
I don't see Kennesaw State scoring less than 35 in this game.
Yeah, so it's all a matter of can Tennessee Tech figure it out. Like I said, they haven't really put up a lot of points against anybody. I got to think the Owls can cover. Next one up, I've got, you talked about Holy Cross a little bit earlier. Holy Cross sitting at number 6 in the country, a great offensive team, good showing against Boston College, right? They deserve the spot that they're in the national rankings at number 6. Matt Sluka is, he's a gamer, right? And so this line comes in. They're taking on Colgate. Colgate on the road going to Holy Cross. Holy Cross is getting minus 30 on this one. But the way that their offense runs, I think that they can do it. Once again, Colgate, like Tennessee Tech, not a great defensive team. They are 109 out of 122 in scoring defense. We know how potent this Holy Cross offense is. They're currently number 6 in the country in scoring offense. I got to think that Matt Sluka gets it done against Colgate, airs it out all day, and that 30 points to cover should not be an issue against a really bad Colgate team. Plus the fact that Colgate's on the road playing at Holy Cross. I also, the over-under set at 56.5. I might look at that too, because a little high, but as bad as Colgate is, I got to think that, they can maybe really run the numbers up and get it done against them. But you never know. You never know.
How these big spreads we saw last week in some of our bets, but when Holy Cross can beat a team like Yale at Yale by 25, you like their chances at home against the lowly Colgate.
Yeah, I mean, because Yale, that we talked about it last week. That was their first game of the season. We didn't know, but Yale, one of the contenders for the Ivy League this year. And it started out a little bit slow. It took Holy Cross some time to get going, but they figured it out. They get it done. They beat Yale at Yale. And so I agree with you. If they can handle Yale with 25, they can handle Colgate by 30 at home, like you said. Final line I've got is... Okay, so going back to Sac State, Idaho. Okay. I said I didn't. It's a pick 'em, so I don't want to touch it. But right now, the line that we have is the over/under is 56.5. I look at that and go, maybe. I don't know, Parlay. How do you feel about a 56.5 over/under for this game at Idaho, home opener for the Vandals?
I think the winning team gets to 30. So if you have a 3-point spread, it's going to be close, but I would lean over. I think I got a little too excited about it when I first saw the number. Didn't really get the time to really think about it, because Sac will try to control the ball on the ground, eat up a little clock. But I really do think the team that wins, and again, I think it's a coin flip of a game. Okay. I think the team that wins will have 30. So it's just, if it's a close game, it should hit 56.5. It should. If I'm betting on this game, which, I like to put a little bit. I'm still someone, even though my bet unit size is a little bigger on FCS these days, I can still have fun with a $10 bet here and there. And that might be what I do on this game when I'm watching later. That's the first marquee matchup, isn't it?
Yep.
In the Big Sky, at least.
Yeah, because we play you guys at like 6, I think.
Yeah.
6 Mountain.
Davis Eastern game is late. Yeah, we got 3 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Mountain Time is Sac at Idaho. Whew, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I do too. Like, a lot of people have that as their game of the week in the FCS, and I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, it's going to be the most competitive game. I don't think that our game is going to be nearly as competitive. I think that the Bobcats have the edge. Brett Vegan has not lost to Weber State. Okay, we've played him 4 times in the last 2 years. He has not lost.
I think you guys are a little undervalued this year, and Bobcats, especially with Malott out, might be a little overvalued. I don't want to say overrated, but maybe a little overvalued. I think it's going to be a good game. I hope we run away with it, literally on the ground with Chambers and with the score. But I think it's going to be close. You were mentioning something earlier about not having as juicy of lines as we'd like. And I want to touch on that because these books are figuring things out. Of course, we've talked a lot about the 2 best games in the Big Sky. There's another one that should be interesting too. Eastern is improving. Somehow they reloaded their offense. They almost knock off
That's what
Fresno.
They do.
Yeah, I don't know. But they almost knock off Fresno State. They do very well at home against Southern. I always want to say CLA, whatever, SLU. That's going to be an interesting game. But the rest of the Big Sky matchups are like the worst of the worst against each other. While there's Montana. Let's see if they can hold down the fort up in the Sky Dome, whatever the walk-up Sky Dome.
Walk-up Sky Dome, yeah. Well, actually, it's got a sponsor this year. I can't remember what it is. Sorry, not a huge Lumberjacks fan, but there is a sponsor, the Walk-up Sky Dome, whatever it is.
So Portland State, Cal Poly. I was excited for that. I'm like, oh boy.
Really?
Come out, show me a line less than 6 or less, and I'm going to hammer Portland State.
Yeah.
But they're onto it. They know Cal Poly is trash, and that line opened at 10.5. So, Portland State probably does win by more than 10.5, but can you really, in your good conscience, put money on Portland State laying, 10.5 points at that little high school stadium? I don't know. If I'm betting that game, I still take Portland State, but that's a big number for a bad team. And then possibly the fight for the worst team not named, Cal Poly. We have UNC at Idaho State.
Right.
Idaho State favored by 4.
This is intriguing.
It is. I really want to bet on Idaho State, but also I would hate myself so much if I lose money on Idaho State.
Agreed.
That's just not something you want to make a habit of. Okay. They are not good. UNC scored 21 against Wazoo. I mean, maybe they found something deep in their bench or some kind of combination that works. So we could have ourselves a shootout in Pocatello, but I don't know. I might end up putting a little bit on Idaho State, a little bit on Portland State, but I really shouldn't. Colby, what are your thoughts on rounding out the Big Sky?
So I felt the same way about the Northern Colorado Idaho State game, but your point is a good one, and sort of reality checks me. UNC did put 21 points.
Oh, I think we lost Colby again. Something's going on with the Mr. Dustin Helton in the chat. If they said Portland State scored more points last week than they did in all of 2022.
Yeah. And they looked good against San Diego State, right?
That's back. All right. So
I don't know what to do with that one. I kind of want to stay away, but like part of me is like, oh, it's intriguing. Oh, maybe like a quarter unit,
Maybe a bad team parlay. Team parlay. Idaho State and Portland State. Just 10 to win 25.
That's not bad. That's not bad. Bad team parlay. Put that one in your books, folks. We got the Rev in the comments here. Portland State scored more points last week than they did in all of 2022. Hey, so maybe they're figuring. Maybe Barney's back to his old magic, offensive genius that he is. Yeah. Also, we got Kevin Marshall in here. Take EKU to win. I was looking, I was like, who are they playing this week? I was trying to find it really quickly.
They had, oh man, that was a hell of a fourth quarter between them and Western Carolina.
Right.
Multiple lead changes. It looked like Eastern had it down. Then Western came storming back. Then Eastern had a chance to tie it with a field goal late and just missed it. We got SEMO.
They play SEMO?
Eastern's getting 3.5 at home against SEMO. And SEMO does not impress me. I don't know. They got a lot of hype this year. I'm not quite sure why. I think it's kind of like the William and Mary thing. It's like people have to hype a team, at least one team from every conference, it seems like. Even if they're not good, they're like, well, this team, they're, from, the CAA has to be good because the CAA used to be good. They're not really. JMU's long gone. William and Mary is not good, all right? Maybe they're top 20, but they are not a top 10 team. Now, that's my hot take. And I don't think SEMO's good for that matter either. They're just the hot team in their conference. I agree.
I want to push back though. Push back. Okay. Because I actually drove to Cape Girardeau last weekend. I wanted to go to the War of the Wheel. I wanted to see SEMO take on SIU, who I think should be the favorite to take the number 3 spot in the Valley this season. SIU has impressed in nearly every competition they've played in thus far this season. Obviously, South Dakota State going to take number 1, likely North Dakota State taking the number 2 spot in the conference. But SIU, the Socklukies, as Dustin Helton likes to call them, man, it's just they're a good team. They went on the road, rivalry game against SEMO. SEMO leads basically a good chunk of the game. They lose in the dying, minutes of the fourth quarter. They give up a touchdown. Socklukies go up and they win the game. That gives me reason to believe somewhat in SEMO, right? Leading a good SIU team for a good, the Rev is right here in the comments saying SEMO can't play a complete game. That showed last weekend, right? SEMO ends up losing in the last 2 minutes of the game, but they had enough to hang with SIU, who is a good team. So I look at SEMO and I'm like, I don't know what to think of you. Kevin Marshall at FCS fans, FCS Radio Nation saying, take EKU. That's a stay away for me. I don't know what to think.
Yeah, if I have to bet that one, I'm taking the points with EKU at home. But you're right. Southern Illinois is a great team, good defense, and a heck of a QB. So
their QB.
A last-second loss in a rivalry game to that QB doesn't mean you're a bad team. I just think their SEMO was getting a little too much hype. So they're still good, but I'll take the points in that if it does open up at 3.5 or higher. We have our ways of finding these lines, okay? We find them early. Sometimes they're a little off by the time you can legally bet them.
Right.
But fingers crossed for you that like Eastern Kentucky, it stays at 3.5 or higher. I don't know. Do we got anything? I guess one little comment. What the hell is the Valley doing on the first week of conference play? They've got 6 teams on a bye, half the conference. Big Sky has taken the spotlight this week, and the SDSUs, Southern Illinois, a couple others are at home. It's just crazy. I don't think you want to have a bye this early. It's interesting.
Yeah, who was I trying to? I was like, I wonder. I can't remember who it was. I was looking, and I was also surprised that they were on a bye already this early in the season. It was somebody close here because I wanted to go to a game this weekend here in Nashville or nearby. But anyway, I agree. This is a really early bye. If you're buying now, that's probably too early. But who knows? We'll see how it shakes out for the Valley.
Spotlight on Big Sky. We'll take it.
Yeah, it's fine. One last one I wanted to shout out because I talked to the Rev about this earlier today. Austin P taking the trip to face Stephen F. Austin. The line that I have is Austin P minus 1.5. Stephen F. Austin has looked good. Austin P has not looked good at times. That game against who they play? I think they played the Salukis, who we just talked about in their first game of the season. They didn't look great. Salukis absolutely smashed them. But then Austin P last weekend goes. I think that the game was in Clarkville. East Tennessee State comes to see them. The Bucks get blown out of the water. I think it was like 71-7. So Austin P is a little up and down. Like, I don't know what to make of them. When they played a good team, they looked bad. When they played a bad team, they looked good. So they were kind of right in the middle. And they, with a 1.5, favored by 1.5 going to Texas to face Stephen F. Austin, I kind of like the Jacks in this game to cover because I just am not a believer in the Govs right now. So that was my last line to throw in there.
It seems to be a trend. We're leaning home teams that are getting a few points, and it used to be a mid-major college basketball strategy I used to have. I'd go peek through the lines. I knew nothing about the teams, but if there was a home team with these small colleges getting the 1 to 4 point range, that means, they're kind of even. So I just went with the home team, and it's not a bad strategy to use. So, all right. I think that about wraps it up with the picks. Yep. Do we have a parlay besides the bad team parlay of Portland State with Idaho State? I mean, I threw this parlay together last minute, and it ended up being the one. My pick ended up being the one that sunk us. Yeah. Shoot, do I even say what is my most? I'm gonna throw in Campbell is my my parlay. Should we take yours and then maybe one from the fans in the chat?
Yeah. So parlay taking Campbell -1 at home. I think I'm going to take the Holy Cross line. All that right. Just to me seems like printing money. Like Colgate's not good. Holy Cross has got a great quarterback. Holy Cross covers.
I agree.
And then let's see, what do we got in the chat really quickly? See if anybody's putting anything. Yeah, Kevin's right. ETSU stinks. They're bad. They're bad. Military college parlay, says the Rev. Kevin will like that. He's got some VMI, some Citadel in there.
No, I'm not putting a nickel on Citadel. I thought I liked their under. And was it Campbell who played them? And I think Campbell beat the over by themselves. It was ugly.
Yeah. I don't have anything in the chat. How about parlay? You just choose one more from yours, and we'll call that that the week's parlay.
Well, you know what, man, I hate to jinx my real money bets out there that may or may not have been placed in Montana over the last few days. But I'm going to put in 3-0 with the unders. The Grizzlies out of Missoula, keep it under 55.5 again to go 4-0 on the unders. Their defense is going to shut down NAU, and their offense may or may not figure things out, a mile above sea level. So we'll see.
All right. Well, that's good, man. The Rev saying do ACU at UCA. I looked at this. I don't want to touch it because Abilene Christian looks competitive. CAU looked decent against North Dakota State. I think, was it last week or a couple of weeks ago? I can't remember which. But both these teams look good. I just didn't want to go there. The line that I got for this one was, let's see, I think they're on the road. Yeah, so it's a pick 'em. The line that I have is CAU favored by 0.5 point on the striped turf. I am not touching that one. I don't know what to think of that. But parlay, that's all I got, man. We want to give a quick shout out then, wrap the show up. If you have any questions or you want to get some feedback, please email fcsfansnation@gmail.com. That's where the guys take your feedback, or if you have ideas, send it to them there. Facebook group is a great place to have conversations. FCS Fans Nation Facebook group is great. They've got, what they just say, they've cracked like 16,000. I can't remember what the number is, but a lot of folks in there that love FCS football. It's a great environment, unless you're a person who doesn't like trash talk between the two Montana schools right now. A lot of people complaining about that in the Facebook group right now, but I'm having a good time, so whatever. Then, of course, this YouTube channel, the Fans Nation Network, a lot of good content on this channel, not just FCS betting lines, but all kinds of other stuff across the FCS, across many of the conferences that make the subdivision great. Check that out. And finally, the podcast. Get in their feed, FCS Fans Nation's good show to kind of wrap up the week. I think it usually comes out on Mondays. just a nice kind of bookend to how things went, kind of get you prepared for the next week. So, Parlay, that's it. Parting thoughts, man?
Looking forward to this day's slate of games, and I appreciate you guys watching. I know we're just kind of working out some kinks here, but I appreciate you guys watching, making comments. It makes it a lot of fun. Hey, when you have proper bankroll management, is there anything that beats college football and betting on games? Come on.
Nah, love it. Absolutely love it. All right, man. Well, we'll wrap up the show. I spent some time. What's the tagline for 1AA parlays? And you know what it is? Bet the best, leave the rest.
There we go.